Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of making a text-based game. So in this episode we're going to really look at adding a sort of death screen so like when you die you go to this death screen at the end of the game, and we're also going to be changing up how exactly we display the fonts and how exactly the text works. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to want to do is create a new room, and we can call this one rm_death. Alright, that was pretty easy. But first we need to do some quick things. As you can see, the width here is that, so we want to, well, change it here. Or maybe it's already the same here. Is it? Alright, it is. Okay, so never mind about that. Okay, so anyways, what we need to be doing then is we need to create a new object. We can call this controller underscore death. So yeah, so we'll have a room death and we'll have a controller death. So let's go into here. We want this to be located, we want the controller death to be located in the same spot that this object is. So let's see here. Okay, 640 by 320. Alright, so we can just put this in here and we can go 640 by 320. Oh, it seems I screwed up. The room was like this. So yeah, we can just quickly change that to 1280 and 720. So now this object should be right in the middle, or at least pretty close to that. So what we're going to want to do now is we're going to need a way to get to this death screen, obviously. So what's going on here? What happens when you die? It just says you died, right? Well, doing what we did before where we've tested for this question mark to see if there's a question, we should just do the same thing to see if you died. So that should be pretty easy. And then all we need to do is put that in the enter. So all we need to do is if text equals you died, exclamation mark. And remember, we have to have this exact because the string knows if it's uppercase or lowercase, and we need to have it exactly the same then. So in any case of death, we'll have to do exactly this. Okay, so if this happens, what we want to do is we want to go to rm_death. So that's all pretty easy. I'll just press Control S to save. And yeah, let's see. Welcome to the game. Are you a human? No. Okay, just pressing enter to skip ahead. Yes. Oh, you died. And well, actually, that doesn't really help because there's nothing different about this room. We can just change the background here to that sort of greenish color. So now let's try this again. Are you human? No. Yes. Okay, so there it works. We go to that room. So what now? Well, we have the controller death and there's no code for it. So what do we want to have happen? Well, we wanted to say something along the lines of press enter to end the game or something like that, so which will allow us to, and then we can add an enter event so then they can just exit the game. So what we're just going to want to do is we're just going to want to reset some of the same things that we had before, such as this. Okay, and draw set V line and center. And then we want to do C red because I think we're going to be using red for all the like input variables or all the buttons that you can be using. And then we're just going to want to draw some text here and there. And since it's in the same location as controller text, we want, because if you look here, you'll see that, yeah, like where it's drawing this is plus 200, so we want to keep that the same. We don't want that to be changing around. So yeah, press enter to end the game. So that's all we should need for the controller text draw event. So now when they hit enter, all we need to do is game end. This will just end the game. So let's try this out. Okay. No. Yes. So yeah, press enter to end the game. And I press enter and it ends. Perfect. So we have that all set up. And what we're going to want to do now is we're going to start working on adding a sort of like background string, or a string behind the string, to make it look like it's more of a 3D sort of string. You'll see what I'm talking about once we get started on it. So we're going to want to change the color just a little bit, because for the offset we're going to want to use black. Actually, probably a little bit more than that. So yeah, we can just go in here and change it to whatever we want. That might work. So we should be done with controller death for now. It's more of controller text that we need to be looking at. And more specifically, we also will need to be looking at this. So right now, all that's happening is it's drawing. The script is drawing this, or it's resetting this. And that works out right now, but if we want to have an offset, so meaning if we want to draw the same text, but we want to have like a layer of text under it, which is a slightly different color, which can make it look sort of 3D, then what we're going to want to have is we're going to want to be able to draw the string underneath this string. And we don't want to be using this script twice. Why? Well, because there's only one instance of these variables. I'll show you why specifically. So if we just go into the draw event, and then I'll copy this, and then for the offset we can have some text under it. So how you have text under stuff is you can just increase it by 2, and then I'll do draw set color C black, and then we can reset it back to the color it needs to be for this, which is C white. And the reason I put this the offset before the actual drawing is because it needs to be under it, and then this happens first, and then this like is drawn over it. And then we can just get rid of this since we're already changing the colors anyways. So now if I press play, look at this. Oh, you can't really see it, but there is text under it. Here, let's change this color up. See, orange. So as you can see, there's some orange under it. But here's the problem. Did you see that? It gets kind of messed up. And that's because we're using the same script twice, but there's a problem with this script. It's creating these variables, but it's only creating these variables once. Even though there's 2 separate instances of the script, it should kind of actually be creating 2 variables. But that's kind of actually a very complicated sort of little argument that we would need to do. So there's something way easier we can just set up in here. So what I'm going to have happen is, so it's creating this smaller string right here. So all we really need to do is create a var, and a var is just the same thing as a variable, but it just exists over a very short amount of time. I can explain it better later, but basically it's just can save space, and it's only, the variable is created and deleted once it's done being used. And since we're only using this in one little spot, we can just do that. So here's the real important part though. Well, actually we need this down here. What we're gonna have is we're gonna have a return string. What this means is that we're returning this variable. Like, we returned here, but we returned nothing. return can just cause it to exit out of, so none of this code gets run when it just does return. But it can return a variable as well. And then we can store that variable in another variable, as we will be doing here. All we need to do is store this here. Again, we can do the same thing, it doesn't really matter. And then, so we're doing the draw text speed here, and we're creating the string, and then we can just store the string here, and then over here we don't need to do this anymore. We can just draw the actual string, and then we can get rid of this because it only really needs a few variables. So technically this should work. We won't see that weird effect anymore. So there you go. Just remember, all this is doing is this is copying the value inside this script and is storing it in here, and then we're using it. We're using it again just to draw normal text, but the string is like shortened. It's like 1 character or 2 characters because it's just being returned the exact value it's at when the script is running. So that's really all there is to implement today, so thank you for watching.